Welcome to BizVote 2021, the Brampton Board of Trade's debates for the upcoming federal election. Ladies and gentlemen, we know how busy you are in your job, and we want to save you time, but also we want you to make informed choices for the upcoming election. What we've done on your behalf is invited 4 parties that are currently in the House of Commons in all 5 ridings in Brampton to debate the business issues. Those issues could be everything from exiting the pandemic to transit, transportation, childcare, environment. We've assembled a group of business leaders to ask the important questions so that you can see and hear the responses from candidates running in this election. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being part of the Brampton Board of Trade. We're here to advocate on your behalf, to bring you programs like this, to connect you with suppliers and customers, and to encourage you and your people to be the best they can be. Together, we are stronger. Ladies and gentlemen, to learn more about the Brampton Board of Trade, please visit bramptonbot.com. Enjoy the debates. Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Todd Letts. I am CEO of the Brampton Board of Trade, and I'm delighted to welcome you to BizVote 2021, the riding debates for the upcoming 2021 federal election. Today, we're hosting candidates from all 5 ridings in Brampton, and welcome to the debate for Brampton East. In the tradition of hosting organized, informative, and impactful debates, today's discussion will be focused on key business issues that are important to you, Brampton Board of Trade members. With over 2,000 voting members that employ more than 60,000 in Brampton, the Brampton Board of Trade takes good care of our business community, connecting, encouraging, and advocating on your behalf, highlighting the issues that impact your business success and the local growth and prosperity of Brampton. Today's debates will focus on specific questions that have been identified by business leaders and will provide the opportunity for guests viewing today to learn more and make more informed decisions in the upcoming election on September 20th. Without any further ado, I'm happy to introduce the business panel that will be posing questions to the candidates today. Please allow me to introduce Glenn Williams, a past chair of the Brampton Board of Trade and member of our Policy and Government Relations Committee. He is joined today by Michelle McCollum, the current chair of the Brampton Board of Trade and Associate Vice President for Capital Development Facilities Management at Sheridan College. Welcome to you both, panelists. Thank you. And our candidates today, representing the Conservative Party of Canada, are Mr. Nabil Bajaj. Representing the Liberal Party of Canada, Mr. Maninder Sidhu. And representing the New Democratic Party, Gail Bannister Clark. Invitations were extended to nominated candidates from parties that are currently represented in the House of Commons. While we would have been happy to invite the Green Party, unfortunately, they were unable to field a candidate in Brampton Centre. Our format for today's session is as follows. Each candidate will get a 2-minute opening statement. After that, a series of questions will be posed from our business panel, myself, and other members of the business community that have pre-recorded questions for our candidates today. For each question, one candidate will be selected to give a 90-second response, and all other candidates will be offered the opportunity for a 30-second rebuttal. At the end of our allotted debate time, all candidates will get a 90-second closing statement. Now, with respect to timing, at my discretion, I've been given the authority as today's moderator to allow for additional rebuttals or longer speaking times, dependent upon the topic. In the interest of time, though, candidates that exceed the allocated time will be asked to conclude so that we can cover the key topics that are important for the business community. So, ladies and gentlemen, candidates, panelists, welcome. We're so happy that you could join us here today. We will start with opening introductory remarks, and that will start with Mr. Maninder Sidhu of the Liberal Party of Canada. Maninder?
Well, good morning, and thank you, Todd. I'm hoping you can hear me well.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, thank you to the Brampton Board of Trade for having all the candidates here, and nice to see Glenn and Michelle as well. Again, thank you very much to the Brampton Board of Trade for having me and my fellow candidates here today. Since I was elected as a member of Parliament for Brampton East since 2019, I'm incredibly proud of the accomplishments we have achieved nationally and at home in Brampton. From the Canada Child Benefit, which gives more money to families who need it the most, it has lifted over 435 kids out of poverty. We restored the age of eligibility for old age security and the GIS to 65 after the previous government raised it to 67. We supported the Canadian workers and businesses through the COVID-19 pandemic with the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, and the Canadian Emergency Business Account. The wage subsidy represented billions of dollars in support to workers and businesses in their time of unprecedented need. Our government lowered the small business tax rate to make it more simpler for Canadians to start and grow their company of their dreams. A prosperous country requires accessible and sustainable transit solutions. Our government has supported over 1,300 public transit projects to help get Canadians around, create jobs, and cut pollution. I was proud to successfully advocate for the single largest federal investment in the history of the riding of Brampton East for a state-of-the-art transit facility, which will be located at Highway 50 and Cadetta Road. And this facility will create over 1,000 good-paying jobs right here in Brampton East. I was also very happy to advocate for a $400 million investment to the City of Brampton for 450 electric buses, which will help make Brampton one of the greenest cities in all of Canada and help connect workers to businesses.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sidhu, for your introductory remarks. Now, representing the New Democratic Party for the riding of a candidate for the riding of Brampton East, we go to Gail Bannister-Clark. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you to the board for having me here, and it's lovely to be here. My name is Gail Bannister-Clark, and I want to begin by saying that I'm on the customary and traditional lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Huron-Wendat. I am a Bramptonian, and this has been my home for over 30 years. I've been a teacher in Brampton East Riding for 14 years, and for the last 2 years, I've been the president of the Peel Elementary Teachers Union, advocating for teachers' working conditions and for the safety of students during the pandemic, as well as frontline workers here in Peel. For many years, the concerns of Bramptonians haven't been represented in Ottawa. And for the last 6 years, Liberal representation in Brampton and the years before with the Conservatives, we see that Brampton has truly been underserved. I want to work with Jagmeet Singh and the NDP and be a strong voice for Brampton, Ottawa. We have an opportunity on September 20th to make a change and elect someone who will bring your voice to Ottawa and take action. In May 2020, 15 months ago, Jagmeet Singh called on Justin Trudeau to introduce paid sick leave. He said provinces need to look at the way to deliver sick leave directly through employers, which the federal government can't do. Mr. Trudeau waited until August 2021 to suddenly admit that the federal can indeed fund paid leave. This is the kind of cynical politics that we must see an end to. I'm so happy to be here today to speak about these important issues, things like jobs, healthcare, climate crisis, and social services that matter so much to people. I'm ready to listen and I'm ready to take action. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bannister-Clark. And next, for introductory remarks, representing as a candidate for the Conservative Party of Canada in Brampton East, is Mr. Naval Bajaj. Mr. Bajaj, you have 2 minutes.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for giving this opportunity. Thanks to Brampton Board of Trade. It's always been an honor to be part of Brampton Board of Trade in the different events and also today morning. As I mentioned, I'm Naval Bajaj. I'm the candidate for the Conservative Party of Canada. Like many of you, I'm a part of small business myself. Brampton East is my home. The riding is where my family and friends are. It is the place where I live. We are one of the fastest growing major cities in Canada. Our citizens are young, energetic, optimistic. Brampton has highly talented workforce with an intense entrepreneurial spirit. We can see this spirit in the diversity of the business represented by the Board of Trade in its membership. But I believe that Canada and this riding, our business people, entrepreneurs, and workers have been let down by the liberal policies backed by NDP over the last 6 years. Prime Minister Trudeau has taken Canadian businesses for granted. He has vilified the private sector in his rhetoric while hiking the business and the payroll taxes to pay for his spending sprees. Our public finances are a disaster. For years now, the Prime Minister has attacked major Canadian businesses like energy and mining companies and crippled investment in their sectors. Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party are no friends of private businesses. Business in Brampton also had to face the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic and the ineffective federal response from the Liberal government. The Liberal botched the vaccine rollout, and the Canadians had been forced to endure months of COVID extended restrictions. This extended restrictions have harmed businesses, workers, and families. The Liberal COVID plan, like almost all the Liberal policies, have failed Brampton East and Canada. The Conservative Party will change this. If elected to government, we will create a business environment that supports innovation, risk-taking, hard work, and success.
Thank you.
These are the core values of Canada and Brampton. It is the time we had a government in Ottawa and a representative in Brampton East who actually believes in them. It's a time for change. Let's make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bajaj, for your introductory comments, and thank you all candidates for your introductory comments. Our first question today will be posed by Glenn Williams, and I understand it's directed at Maninder Sidhu. Mr. Williams, go ahead.
Good morning. Yes, my question is to Mr. Sidhu. Here in Brampton, we're in the center of what is known as Canada's Innovation Corridor, a dense cluster of high-tech industry and learning opportunities anchored around the GTA and the Pearson Airport. What do you think is needed to make our innovation corridor an international icon similar to Silicon Valley? And how will you help attract the pieces to bring that together?
Well, thank you for the question, Glenn. And definitely our industry here in Brampton is growing. I've been to many different companies like Woodlore, where we invested in innovation in order to grow their capacity, which brought hundreds of jobs to Brampton East. I also think that transit plays a very important role in connecting our communities. Whether you're bringing in talent from other cities, whether you're connecting workers with businesses, I think transit is a very integral part of growing our innovation and investing in sustainable solutions. So transportation is huge for me. We all know that many people drive in Brampton, but we want to also make environmentally friendly choices as well. And that's why bringing a transit facility to help grow capacity here in Brampton East is very, very important. I think that will connect us to the innovation corridor. And as well, we have we had our Honorable Minister Al Gabra come in and make a trade corridors funding as well. We do know Brampton is a supply chain hub, and we need to continue supporting our businesses here locally with investments in our supply chains and our shipping routes.
Thank you, Mr. Sidhu. Rebuttal from Gail Bannister-Clark. 30 seconds, please.
Thank you. I believe that small businesses are the heart of our community and economic growth and innovation. We know that small businesses represent 99% of the businesses in Brampton, and they were quite hard hit during this pandemic. We saw that the Liberal government wasn't willing to step in and provide the relief that was necessary at the time, and the New Democrats, through Jagmeet Singh, pushed for the support that small businesses needed. When the Liberals wanted to just give 10% of workers' wages, the New Democrats pushed for 75% workers to receive wages so that people weren't laid off, people were able to continue to work, and businesses were able to remain open. And this is the support that we need in Brampton.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bannister-Clark. And 30-second rebuttal to Glenn's question concerning the innovation corridor, pieces that are needed to help us compete with Silicon Valley and other jurisdictions worldwide. Mr. Bajaj?
Justin Trudeau and the Liberal government backed by the NDP have neglected economy, neglected innovation, neglected Canadian workers, have neglected Canadian families, have neglected Brampton. There is no plan for either economy, either getting the jobs, neither on the innovation. It's just empty promises, from last 6 years, what Liberals have done, whether we speak about the innovations or we speak about economy, have assumed massive public debt, but no positive economic benefits or any work on the innovation, have allowed the inflation, the cost of living to rise exponentially.
Thank you.
We need
Mr.
strong innovation.
Thank you very much for that. We will go to our next question now, and this will be a video question. It will be posed to Gail Bannister Clark, and it comes from Craig Fowler, who is principal of Algoma University here in Brampton. Please roll the tape, Terry.
If you were elected, what programs and initiatives will you push the federal government to implement in order to help young Canadians gain skills and experiences that are relevant in the decade ahead?
Ms. Bannister Clark?
Thank you for the question. Young people are the heart and the future of all economy and prosperity here in Brampton as well as in Canada. And we know that here in Brampton, they make up a large part of the population. We need to ensure that they have what they need to succeed. Currently, we have students who are graduating with $28,000 of debt at the end when they have their degree. And this has created huge challenges for them. I think that one of the first things that we need to do is to address that concern so that they can enter the workforce knowing that they don't have a severe debt to pay back. Education is paramount, and we have students who can't even enter into education because of knowing that the mounting debts that they'll have. We'll give graduates a 5-year break on loan repayment and forgive up to $20,000 in student debt. And I think that will help them to initiate, first of all, and just go to university and secondary education, as well as when they complete that, be free to move into innovative spaces and jobs without having to take on 2 or 3 jobs in order to pay back their student debt.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Bannister Clark. Opportunity to rebut to Mr. Bajaj. If you were elected, what programs and initiatives will you push the federal government to implement in order to help young Canadians gain skills and experience that are relevant in the decade ahead? Please go ahead.
It's very important that, to create the jobs, create the high paying quality jobs, create the environment for the innovation, create the environment, for the youth, so that they can, have the startup businesses, they can themselves become entrepreneurs. We have seen that, the current Liberal government in the last 6 years have not done much about the youth, or creating the opportunities for the businesses, creating the opportunities for the entrepreneurs, or either creating the high paid quality, jobs. And that's where we see the youth, when it's coming out of the universities, coming out of the colleges, are not having jobs. We need to get our economy back on track. We need to create jobs.
Please conclude. Thank you, Mr. Bajaj, for your rebuttal. And a 30-second rebuttal from Mr. Maninder Sidhu, representing the Liberal Party of Canada. This question about how your government can help young Canadians gain skills and experience that are relevant in the next decade ahead. Please go ahead.
Well, very important question, especially for Brampton East being such a young riding. We want to double the training and innovation program to $50 million a year to support more apprenticeship training opportunities. We want to create up to 28,000 positions for our young Canadians to help small and medium-sized businesses go digital through the Main Street Business Program. We also want to offer zero-interest loans to small and medium-sized businesses so they can finance larger tech adoption projects which involve a lot of our younger populations. We invested in the Rogers Cybersecurity Catalyst to help young startups get some footing, and through our Canada Summer Jobs Program, which we've doubled placements from 80,000 placements for our youth to 150,000 placements, so they can integrate with our business community. We'll fund the opportunity for them to go get the experience and real life mentorship. So I think there's important programs that we have at play, and I'll continue pushing for more as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sidhu. Our next question is to Mr. Naval Bajaj, and will be posed by the current chair of the Brampton Board of Trade, Michelle McCollum. Please go ahead, Michelle.
Thanks so much, Todd, and a very, very good morning. Naval, employers consistently identify access to affordable childcare as a barrier to recruiting and retaining talent. The federal government has several policy levers available to incentivise creating childcare spots across the country. If you're elected, what will you do to create more childcare spaces right here in Brampton?
One of the things is that we, as previously also mentioned, it's very important that we get proper funding for Brampton. We get proper infrastructure for Brampton. We get additional child space for in the city of Brampton. And to do all this, it's one of the most important thing is, one is as the elected representative to advocate for that strongly. The second thing is getting the economy back on track. At present, we have a huge debt, and we know that when the country is under the debt, when they are not able to meet the needs, it's very difficult for investing on the infrastructure. That's where the Liberals backed by NDP have failed and not able to get enough childcare space or enough funding for Brampton or enough investment opportunities in Brampton. And it's very, very important that we get our economy back on track. There is no plan Liberals have today to get the economy back on track, no plans to create the jobs. It's just empty promises year after year, and especially what we see from the last 6 years. It's a time for change. It's the time for the Trudeau government to go. It's time for getting more funds and what Brampton needs. So as a representative elected from Brampton, I will make sure I get what Brampton needs with the help of our conservative government. So let's just make sure that we vote for change.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bajaj. Opportunity for rebuttal to Mr. Maninder Sidhu of the Liberal Party of Canada first. Please go ahead, Mr. Sidhu.
Yes, thank you. I find it intriguing that my Conservative colleague mentioned childcare spaces when their tax credit to rich families will do nothing to increase childcare spaces. Our plan will create 250,000 placements for childcare across the country nationally. Our $10 a day daycare strategy, childcare, affordable childcare, will help so many families in Brampton and across Canada. It'll help save roughly $15,000 for a family with young children that go to daycare. It'll help allow a lot of the parents and women to get back into the workforce, to grow our economy, to grow our GDP. And the business community is firmly on side with our national childcare strategy. So, for a Conservative party that says they stand with the business community, they stand with families, they stand for growing the economy, their tax credit does nothing for any of this. How are you supposed to access a tax credit if you have no income? If you're a parent, a young mother, or a young father staying at home with zero income, you can't access that tax credit. We want to make sure that families have the ability to go back to work, to contribute to our economy, and to grow our GDP. So this helps all three sectors, and whether it's the economy, it's the business community, or it's our families. So I think it's important to mention that there is no strategy to create additional placement in the Conservative plan.
Great, thank you, Mr. Sidhu. An opportunity to rebut to Gail Bannister-Clark, representing the New Democratic Party in Brampton East.
Thank you. We know childcare is so important. The Liberals have not made a difference for families struggling to get the care that they need. When we know that there is only space for 1 in 4 Canadian children under the age of 6, it's clear that this has not been a priority for this government. They've had 60 years to put a plan in place and take action, and they have not done it. The NDP believes that childcare is an investment in our families, our future, and our economy, and we will invest $1 billion in childcare and grow that investment annually. We will ensure that people don't have to make hard decisions about whether or not they have a career or a family. We will ensure that people have the affordable childcare that they need and be able to put aside savings for their child's education and their retirement.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Bannister Clark, for that rebuttal. We'll go to a question from the field now, a pre-recorded question from Mr. Jan Holland, who's the president of Design Precision Castings, a manufacturer here in Brampton. And he is posing this question to Maninder Sidhu of the Liberal Party. Terry, please roll the tape.
I'm hoping the candidates can comment on how can we strike the right balance of supporting people affected by the pandemic while winding down the programs that are a disincentive for people to return to the workforce and are putting an enormous fiscal strain on the country. Thank you.
Mr. Sidhu, if you could comment, please, with respect to providing support for Canadians through employment programs, yet as many employers are reporting, they're finding a very, very difficult time recruiting and retaining staff. And if you could just comment on that, please.
Yes, it's a very important question from the business community. As we've seen immigration at a standstill because of the pandemic, because we had to slow down immigration into our country, it's impacted many businesses, and I've heard firsthand from many businesses, through my office as well as the MP. We are winding down a lot of the supports. The CERB is down to almost half of what it was at the beginning, but we also want to continue. We support like the tourism sector, for example, or the hotel and hospitality industry. They're not back at full steam yet, but as we open up our borders, as we open up our economy, we know that we need to continue to be there for the business community as well, whether that's through the rent subsidy or the wage subsidy or just rehiring their workers. But I know that once the borders and immigration is back at full steam, I know the business community would appreciate that, but we also need to make sure that we do protect Canadians during this pandemic as well.
Thank you, Mr. Sidhu. An opportunity to rebut from Ms. Gail Bannister Clark of the New Democratic Party. Please go ahead.
Thank you. A balance is definitely needed. We need to ensure that we are supporting working people. That is just the bottom line. We know that so many were unemployed during the pandemic. Small businesses had to lay people off, cut hours in half, and that was because we weren't supporting them. And it was Jagmeet Singh that pushed for us to increase CERB, to double it, and as well as give a wage subsidy of 75% to businesses so that they could stay open, so that they could prosper, and that they could keep their employees. We have Canadian billionaires who made $78 billion during the pandemic. So when we're talking about balance, we really need to look at who is being underserved and who is being served. We have people who made money, and we have people who needed the support, and the NDP will be there to give the support to small businesses as well as working citizens when needed.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ms. Bannister Clark. An opportunity to rebut from the Conservative Party of Canada, Naval Bajaj. Please go ahead.
That's a great question. That's the thing which, when we speak about conservative and conservative government are always focused when it comes to, on the jobs. And, just before I answer this question, one thing I want to mention about, Mr. Sidhu mentioned about the GDP, the second quarter report, which says the GDP has sunk by more than 1%, so it's not, it's not good to talk about GDP or talking about, conservative beliefs on tax. Conservatives always have done the tax cut, which helps overall the economy. Now, going back on the point about the job creation, small businesses are struggling, and overall businesses are struggling. Canadians are not having job and are sitting at home. So conservative government, conservative have a strong plan. One is the small business emergency loans to up to 200,000. The Liberals was only 60,000, which is not enough. You know, making sure that 25% tax credit on the personal investment to the small businesses by the owners to get back on the job, 25% of the salary to be given for the, for the people who are not on the work, so that we can help the small businesses plus help the business people to get back on the work. People who are, sitting for more than 6 months, 50% of the salary for 6 months, again, which is going to help the small businesses to pay that one, as well as help the Canadians to go back to get back to work. In, lower business taxes, to work on the lower, to make sure that, we have the Canada Revenue Agency less aggressive and more cooperative with the small businesses. Reduce the red tape and administrative inefficiency for businesses. Make sure that we reduce the interprovincial trade barriers on the things. One of the things which we said is GST-free month, which is going to help.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bajaj.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Mr. Sidhu, Mr. Bajaj in his comments made direct reference to you and your government with respect to GDP. Would you like an opportunity to rebut on his comments?
Yes, of course. I'd like to point out that from pre-pandemic levels, we're almost at, I think, 95% of our pre-employment levels. In comparison to the U.S., they're around 75%. So we are rebuilding our economy and growing and building back better. But what my reference was to childcare and how many boards of trades across Canada support our childcare strategy and not a tax credit for the rich.
Thank you, Mr. Sidhu. We will go to our next question now, and that will be posed by Mr. Glenn William. Glenn, who would you like to pose your question to?
Thank you, Todd. I think I'll pose my question to Mr. Maninder Sidhu of the Liberal Party. So there's been a lot of discussion in this election about housing and the cost of housing, particularly for young Canadians trying to get into the housing market. There's two sides of that equation. One is supply and one is demand. So I want to ask you about the supply side. So I do realize that it is primarily a provincial and municipal responsibility, but what can the federal government or your party, will they do to help create more supply of housing, which indirectly should lower the cost or keep the cost from increasing?
Mr. Sidhu?
Yes, well, thank you for that very important question, Glenn, especially for our youth and our younger generation that wants to get into a home, wants to get into home ownership. It's very, very important to so many families and the youth in our community, which I've heard from. Our home ownership plan is very important. It's gonna, first of all, we're gonna offer a if you're under the age of 40, a $40,000 tax-free savings account to purchase your first home. In addition to that, we want to ban foreign ownership for residential properties for up to 2 years. You mentioned that it's primarily a municipal and provincial jurisdiction in terms of supply management, but we also want to work with municipalities and work with the provinces and incentivize them to increase supply. We know that if we're able to increase supply, we've got a big country, and we have a lot of places where we can build, but we also need to work hand in hand with our municipalities and our provinces. In addition to this, through our apprenticeship training program, we have to get more skilled labor to build more homes, and that's why we're investing in apprenticeship programs as well.
Thank you, Mr. Sidhu. Ms. Gail Bannister-Clark, would you like to rebut on the question of housing supply and housing prices?
Yes, thank you. We know that during the pandemic, resale prices increased approximately 16% in Brampton. And Justin Trudeau has ignored the housing issues and has failed to act. And we must do something to address this. Our new deal for people will make a real difference in housing. We will build 500,000 affordable homes across the country. We'll reintroduce a 30-year mortgage and double first-time home buyer tax credit to $1,500. The NDP will also provide immediate relief to renters that will need help with a rental benefit of up to $5,000. And we will put a levy of 20% on international buyers so that the cost of new homes won't keep rising, and will make it affordable for young families to purchase.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Bannister-Clark of the New Democratic Party. Opportunity to rebut on the question of housing supply and housing prices, Mr. Naval Bajaj of the Conservative Party of Canada.
Yes, Justin Trudeau and the Liberal government have stood idly by while Canadian housing prices have skyrocketed. Owning a home is no longer a realistic goal for a growing number of young Canadians. You know, when we speak about supply shortage of housing supply, Liberals have failed to work with the provincial, the local governments to increase the housing supplies. You know, when we speak about not only that, one of the things is that Liberals have failed to address the Canadian real estate being used by the criminal and the foreign groups to launder money. The Equivalent Commission, you know, BC money laundering inquiry by the BC government. We need to look into that. What Conservatives will do is, you know, build 1 million new homes in the next 3 years. Work on the 15% for the federally owned real estate for housing development on that. Reduce the red tape and administrative roadblocks for housing development. To ban the foreign investment for people who are not living in Canada or who are planning to stay in this home. It's very important to ban this one. And when we speak about Liberal, the Liberals have not delivered.
Thank you, Mr. Bajaj, for your rebuttal on the question of housing supply and housing prices. Our last question before final remarks will be posed by me, and it's a question about the role of a member of parliament. I'm going to address it to Ms. Gail Bannister-Clark first, and then the other candidates will have an opportunity to provide their perspective. Many people feel that the role of a member of parliament has changed, that it has become primarily focused on representing the position of their political party as opposed to the constituents in their riding. Has there ever been an issue where you've disagreed with your own party? And under what circumstances would you vote against your party in the House of Commons? Ms. Gail Bannister-Clark?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think that the primary role of an MP is to represent their constituents. We need to remember that, and that needs to be at the forefront of our minds, and it is at the forefront of mine. As I'm knocking on doors, I am hearing from constituents saying that they don't feel represented. They feel underserved. In the last 6 years and the years before that, they have not been represented. Their issues have not gotten to Ottawa. And that is because their concerns are not the concerns of this Prime Minister. So we do have a huge issue with people being MPs and thinking that they represent a party instead of the constituents in their riding. I, for one, I'm happy that I am part of the NDP and understand that Jagmeet Singh represents working people, represents Canadians, and listens to their voices and is able to respond to them. So I don't see that I will have any trouble responding to the needs of the constituents, and because their needs are the needs that will be represented by Jagmeet Singh. And that is our number one job. And as MP, I am well, as president of the union, I am used to advocating for people. I'm used to listening to concerns and responding appropriately. And that is what I will do as MP of Brampton East.
Thank you very much for your response, Ms. Gail Bannister-Clark, representing the New Democratic Party. Opportunity to answer this question now to Maninder Sidhu of the Liberal Party of Canada. Has there ever been an issue where you've disagreed with your party, and under what circumstances would you vote against your party in the House of Commons?
Well, thank you very much for the question, Todd, and definitely being the MP from Brampton East since 2019, and hearing the constituents' concerns and bringing them to Ottawa is the utmost importance to me. Being the voice of Brampton East, whether that's talking to ministers, whether that's in the House of Commons, and bringing recovery programs to businesses or to constituents in need is important, but listening is also more important as well. I've heard door-to-door, people calling into the office, that vaccine certification and vaccine mandates is important. And I think even representing that at the federal level is extremely important for our economy, for our families. I find it very interesting that there's a lot of Board of Trades across Canada that support vaccine certification, including our Premier now, our mayors of Mississauga, mayors of Brampton, but there's only one person that's against it, and that's Mr. Aaron O'Toole and the Conservative Party. They say they talk about growing the economy, they talk about supporting families, but they don't want to support vaccine certification. How do you support the economy if, God forbid, that one of the premiers decides to go into lockdown again? We need to continue protecting our families. We need to continue protecting our business and our economy, and I think that's one important way that we can all get behind.
Thank you, Mr. Sidhu. Opportunity for rebuttal to Mr. Naval Bajaj of the Conservative Party of Canada. Has there ever been an issue where you've disagreed with your party, and under what circumstances would you vote against your party in the House of Commons? Mr. Bajaj?
Thank you. That's a great question. One of the things which, when going to door and listening to the constituents, one thing the constituents are very vocal about it, that their voice is not being heard. They are not being represented properly in the House of Commons. There is nobody in the riding also, or meeting them personally to raise their concerns. And one of the things which we said, the way exactly Mr. Sidhu did, he just liberals are meant for distracting the things. He just distracted the whole thing to something which is not truth, and moving away from the truth and putting the facts which are not truthful. One of the things is there, as from my past experience, as I've worked with different boards. I was the president of the Introductory Chamber of Commerce and worked with all the 3 tier of governments. It's very important that as a member of parliament, it's important to be an advocate, to be advocacy with all the 3 level of government, and work on whatever it needs to take to make sure that the constituency, the Brampton, specifically in this case, the Brampton East, the Brampton gets what it wants. The constituents of Brampton deserves much better, and we need to make sure that we work with all the tier of government, including the federal government, to make sure that Brampton is getting what it wants.
Thank you, Mr. Bajaj. If there's no other rebuttals requested, we will move to our closing comments. The order of closing comments, and it is a 90-second closing comment, will be Mr. Bajaj, followed by Ms. Bannister-Clark, and concluding with Mr. Sidhu. So, Mr. Bajaj, your closing remarks, please.
Well, I would like to thank the Brampton Board of Trade for hosting this event and for extending me an invitation. Brampton is a dynamic, promising city for its businesses and its residents. We have the potential and the capacity to be an example to the other Canadian urban centers. We have an opportunity here in Brampton to be the leading edge of an economic recovery that will guarantee Bramptonians and Canadians a prosperous, stable, and secure economic future. But we need the federal government on the side of businesses and workers. We need the competent and the prudent management of the public finances in Ottawa. We need to ensure future funding for growing cities like Brampton. The truer liberals have not and will not provide that leadership. They don't understand business, and they don't have a plan to get Canadians back at work. The liberals have not delivered, and why should we believe them this time? Only the Conservative Party of Canada and our Canada Recovery Plan will deliver that leadership. Again, my name is Naval Bajaj. Thank you, and it's time for change. Let's make sure we vote for change. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bajaj of the Conservative Party of Canada. Next, for closing remarks, is Ms. Gail Bannister-Clark of the New Democratic Party of Canada. Ms. Bannister-Clark?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here today. Friends, New Democrats are different because we're working people. We have a history of fighting for better working conditions and standards that lift everyone up. We know that good jobs that treat people fairly make a real difference for Canadian families, and that setting Canadians up for success in the work world is a future benefit for all of us. New ways of thinking can shape the recovery from the COVID crisis, help our economy to deliver results that we want. For the last 6 years, we have had a Liberal Prime Minister who loves to say the right thing, to promise to address the issues of Canadians with no intention of delivering them. They've had 6 years to put these plans in actions that we've heard of today, and it hasn't been done. Liberals have been promising pharmacare and childcare for decades. We have a Conservative leader who wants to convince you that he's dragging his party kicking and screaming into the 21st century, all the while the majority of his caucus contradict him on key social issues every day. Privatizing your healthcare system, creating a system which the rich can pay to jump line. Jagmeet Singh and the NDP have a record for fighting for you instead of protecting billion-dollar companies that profited off the pandemic but paid no tax. The NDP fought for you and your family, pushing the Liberal government on supports that helped regular Canadians and small businesses thrive through the pandemic. On September the 20th, I hope that you'll consider electing me as your MP, Gail Bannister Clark, so that I can fight for you every single day. And that is my pledge to you today. I will fight for you, I will listen to you, and I will respond with action. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bannister Clark. And our final closing remark today is from Maninder Sidhu, representing the Liberal Party of Canada in Brampton East. Mr. Sidhu?
Yes, thank you very much, Todd, and to the Brampton Board of Trade. During the pandemic, many businesses in Brampton East went through a very hard and difficult time, and our Liberal government was there to support and respond to the urgent needs of Canadian business owners and workers through the wage subsidy, rent subsidy, emergency business account, and other pandemic response program. We will continue to support economic growth, support to families through our important national childcare strategy so that they can support businesses. Our Liberal investment in childcare will drive economic growth, increase women's participation in the workforce, and offer every child across Canada the best start in life. A re-elected government, Liberal government, will work diligently to restore employment to pre-pandemic levels, going beyond 1 million jobs, and invest in sectors to create more good, well-paying jobs. A re-elected Liberal government will continue investing in innovation so that Canadian businesses can retool, expand, and grow their workforce. We will continue to support business growth through important programs like our National Trade Corridor Fund, which will help support our vital supply chains, not only here in Brampton, but across Canada to improve Canada's shipping routes, and will support thousands of jobs in our trade sector and further create good-paying jobs. Our planned investments and strategies laid out in our platform will help businesses bounce back faster and grow. There's still more to do, and we're ready to keep building on our progress. And I look forward to representing you once again for Brampton East. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Sidhu, and thank you to all of our candidates for today's debate, your insightful responses to the questions. I want to thank the business panelists, Glenn Williams, past chair of the Brampton Board of Trade and current member of our Policy and Governance Committee. I'd like to thank Michelle McCollum, the current chair of the Brampton Board of Trade and AVP with Sheridan College, and I also want to thank Craig Fowler, the principal of Algoma University in Brampton, and Jan Holland, president of Design Precision Castings. Of course, I want to thank our candidates today. Ms. Gail Bannister Clark of the New Democratic Party of Canada, Mr. Naval Bazaj of the Conservative Party of Canada, and Mr. Maninder Sidhu of the Liberal Party of Canada. And to our viewers and members, please, no matter who you support, please ensure that you get out and vote. These individuals that have put their name on the ticket, regardless of the stripe, we salute you for your courage in doing that, and it is important to vote. Election day is Monday, September 20th, and advanced polls are available this coming Friday to Monday, September 10th through 13th. Please visit elections.ca to find your polling location. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for viewing our second debate in a series of 5. Our next debate will be for the riding of Brampton North, and that will start at 11 a.m. today. We wish you a happy, safe day, and we look forward to seeing you at a future Brampton Board of Trade event. Thank you very much.